Hey everybody, Bobby Medina here. I am here with my good friend and trumpeter, the great John Daniel today, bringing you guys some fun and exclusive content here. John is the professor of trumpet at Lawrence University. He has performed all over the place. He's a man of many styles. He wears a lot of hats in his career. He's played as principal trumpet for a number of years for like San Angelo Symphony, the Abilene Philharmonic. In the jazz world, he's played with Lionel Hampton, Bill Watrous, the great Nelson Riddle Orchestra that used to back up Frank Sinatra. He's got a number of CDs out. He's a shilky artist, and just want to say welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here.
It's good to be here.
So I was just going to kind of start by asking you just to share just briefly, how'd you get started in playing trumpet? What's your story?
Well, my father was a band director and choral director and very fine singer. And there was music in the house, recordings, and he would make wood blocks and stuff for us to bang on. And I remember a particular record I listened to every day called Bozo Down on the Farm. But it turned out to be written by Billy May.
Oh, really?
The music, it was just for kids, but the whole soundtrack was by Billy May. And so that was kind of my earliest years. And then my grandmother gave us the heirloom piano when I was about 5, and my dad started teaching us all how to play piano and to sing.
Hmm.
So he gave us all voice lessons and breathing lessons. I was 5 and I'm learning all this anatomy. And and before long, he had us singing in 4 and 5 part harmony, uh, mostly because there was some musical talent in the family, and but more than that, he's just a brilliant teacher.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
he had us all solfegging and stuff, thinking it was fun. you
Well,
know,
it's important, I mean, the first
yeah,
thing that I had my kids do when they were very young, and I'm talking like when they were maybe less than even a year old, I'd sit them on my
sure.
knee at the piano and I just have them play a note and sing that pitch. I'd sing it and I'd say, you sing it and find it, because it's a quick way to develop your ear, and that mind sound coordination and pitch.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure my dad was doing that. I don't remember most of it, but
Do you
I'm
out
pretty
of
sure he,
curiosity?
yeah, it
Uh,
was, he was just a teacher in his blood and his DNA code, so I'm sure he was doing all that right away.
so out of curiosity, do you have perfect pitch or do you just have
I
relative
do
pitch?
not. I do not. I work at it all the time. When I'm at school teaching, I have my students on one end of the room with their music stand opposite me, and they blow towards me. And on a good day, I don't have to get up from the desk. I either already know what they're playing, or it's simple enough I can figure it out by ear well enough.
Hmm.
But if they're playing something hard that I've never played, then of course I got to get up and go look at it. But
Yeah,
I
sure.
try to pick it up by ear as best I can. I've been doing it that way for about 30 years, and it gets better. But it's weird. Every morning I'll wake up and I can barely match a pitch until I've had a certain amount of coffee. You know, it's wherever the information is stored in there. It's like a language, and it's not my first language. It's my
Hmm.
second language. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
So what got you into the trumpet specifically?
My older brother, a year older than me, started in 4th grade, and I think I was more interested in it than he was. I mean, I would hear him
Hmm.
play it, and he came very easily for him. And I remember shortly after he started, Al Hurt and Doc Severinsen were in the Super Bowl,
Oh yeah.
1964 or something. And so we saw that. I got excited, and then it was all Tijuana brass all the time.
Hmm.
And so I would say within, oh, 6 weeks or certainly 6 months of starting on the trumpet, my family started doing Herb Alpert music.
Mm-hmm.
My dad played guitar, and my sisters played maracas and claves, and my mom played piano, and my brother and I played trumpet. And shortly after that, we were at that point. My dad was teaching Spanish in high
Oh,
school,
really?
and yeah, so we were. He grew up in Raton, New Mexico,
Really? That's
and
close to where
yeah,
my father's from Trinidad, Colorado, so it's real close to that
yeah, that
area.
is close. Yeah, no, I know that area.
Sure.
So yeah, and so we were playing for you know Spanish dinners and whatnot that he had put
Mm-hmm.
together at different community events, and um, so I was playing second trumpet on Tijuana Brass
Well, that's cool.
very early. Uh, I was hooked. I was hooked immediately.
That's exactly how I learned, when I first learned to play the trumpet, my band director in the seventh grade gave me a fingering chart. She taught me how to start a sound, and I started learning notes. And my parents had a bunch of Herb Alpert records, and he had I get by with a little help from my friends.
Yeah, yeah,
Cover, ba, ba, da, 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 da. And I learned actually how to play, which was in the key of
yeah,
concert E flat. And I started figuring a lot of things out by playing along with them. And fast forward many years later, I have a Herb tribute show that I do. And we travel all over the place doing it every now and then. And it's a lot of fun. Well,
well,
one of the things that's been interesting for me to hear, I know you've had a really varied career, but you've chimed in on a couple of things on our chat board, I guess you'll say, on our discussion threads here, and it's made a lot of sense. Some of the things you have said. I have, and I'll just tell everybody the way I got to know John Daniel is through his book. He's got a great book out. It's called Special Studies for Trumpet, and it's got a lot of real interesting stuff in it. And John was kind enough. He didn't know me. He signed it and put an inscription in it, and it was kind of cool because it's got a lot of really intricate, difficult stuff. And I'm particularly interested in a lot of things that have to do with the mind. And I know you have a couple of, actually more than a couple, a lot of things in there. But something that caught me was your a little piece in there that you wrote called "Commitment to the Moment." And I wonder if you could just elaborate a little bit on
sure.
for everybody.
Well, when I was in high school, I was around a lot of talent, and I got the wrong idea of what it took to be good. My older brother would play 20 minutes a day and ended up being first chair in All-State. And my dad was a super smart guy, could do anything he wanted. And I just got the wrong idea of what it took. And so I would kind of piddle around for an hour in the morning, but, I didn't like to warm up. I just would play a little bit of warm up and then I'd go through all my lesson material. And I just wasn't very smart about what I was doing or how I was doing it. And my teacher, a guy named David Greenhoe, who is still around and he's retired from University of Iowa, but he was teaching at Ball State at the time. I grew up in Muncie, Indiana.
Mm,
And, I think at that point he was still fairly young, maybe late 20s, and he had the idea that I should be motivated by playing hard music. And so I would go to contests and just, it was a miserable experience. When I go to high school contests, I would go and play very poorly
mhm.
and give in to the nerves, just give in to it. And it was almost an out of body experience. I was so, um, I just didn't want to be there.
Right.
And which was really sad because there's nothing else I wanted to do but play the trumpet. But
Mhm.
there was something about the reality of the moment that I like to believe I was much better than I was.
Yeah, well, a lot of us are, sometimes that performance anxiety takes over, and it's one of those things that you have to learn
Well,
how to
yeah, and
get
so it was
through, you know?
my ego versus the reality of the moment, and the ego's desire to survive just made me give up. because then it could save itself. In the back of my mind, it was this: well, I have this anxiety or this nervous problem. I'm really a good player. It just I can't, That was some rationalization in there. And then I was a competitive tennis player, and I saw some similar things going on in the tennis court. And I finally realized one day playing tennis is that if I didn't beat myself, I might have a chance. And so
Hmm.
I was one of those guys you hate to play who just kept the ball in play. Didn't matter what happened, I pushed it back, pushed it back, pushed it back, and put the pressure on the opponent to hit winners. And I started beating people who were much better than me. And then I applied that to the trumpet, which is just stay in the moment. Try as hard as you can. Do not give up on this note. Do not give up on this phrase. Do not give up on yourself. If you're no better than that, that's okay. But accept everything. Just deal with it.
Hmm.
And as soon as I started doing that, I started making progress. I started playing in church every Sunday, writing descants for myself to make it more challenging than just
Hmm.
playing hymn tunes. And it turned me around where I had a way out. But so for me, this idea of committing to the moment is a way of channeling energy. And rather than call it nerves or anxiety, I just call it excitement or
Hmm.
energy. You're
Hmm.
getting ready to play, and yeah, you might feel it initially as some form of fear. You might feel it initially as some form of self-doubt, but it doesn't have to stay there. You can focus it into playing well. You can
Sure.
focus you can focus it into concentration. It's really what it's about.
Well, and it's also a little Zen-like, right? You're right there. This is the moment. And a lot of people, we project things into the future. We look back at the past, and what's happened in the past really doesn't have to affect you if you don't let it. And what's going to happen in the future, well, we don't really know. So the smart thing is to commit to the moment and be involved in it, and be involved in the action that you're
Well,
taking.
that's right. And I think a lot of us, our initial relationship to the instrument and music is so adolescent, it's so competitive and worried about how we stack up to other people. And we have to get into a situation where our relationship to the instrument and to our career and to making music is healthy and sustainable
Right,
and empowering
right.
and all those things. And yeah, we have to quit projecting, worrying about others. And you know how it is in this business. Bad news travels fast.
Yeah,
And
I mean, sometimes there's the highest. I was just having this conversation with my wife yesterday, who's not a musician at all, and I was saying to her that the highest compliments that I can give trumpeters or music or other instrumentalists is not by calling them trumpeters, but it's by calling them musicians. And unfortunately, there are a number of people that they're just only interested in the physicality of playing the instrument
yeah,
and conquering these things like it's
well, it
weightlifting
is
or
it is
something.
super interesting.
Oh,
That it's super
absolutely.
interesting. But what I've tried to do with my book, for example, and exercise in the book is that the primary technique we're trying to develop is the technique of expression.
Exactly.
So you have control to crescendo, decrescendo, play in tune, make some changes in our tone, not play the trumpet like it's a piano where it's like there's the note, but to actually decide on the sound that we want to. And
But the
but
end
all that
result
stuff
is,
takes chops.
yeah.
It's the flip side of it.
Yeah. Well, the end result is musicality, but you're absolutely right. And it's finding that balance, how much do I work on these weak spots? How much do I spend time on repertoire or music or whatever's coming up? And that varies for all of us because some of us may be on the road playing every day of the week almost. Some of these guys are like Paul Barron the other day, he was talking about, he does shows night after night after night after night for months and months on end, and others of us, are playing a couple, three times a week, maybe less, maybe a little more. So, and it might be spaced out, throughout the week. It might not all just be on Friday and Saturdays. I do a lot of strange weekday gigs sometimes, and luncheons and corporate events and things. So that's cool. So, so that's important. The commitment to the moment. The other day we were posting up some stuff about breathing and getting back into technique here, which we're starting to talk about a little bit. So something that interested me was your comment on the technique that your father, who you mentioned earlier, he was a singer, and that the breathing technique that he showed you. And I experimented a little bit with it and have been trying it, and it has made a difference. And
Oh, nice.
I'm not actually sure that I'm doing it correctly. So
Well.
I'd
Look,
like for you to explain it.
first of all, everybody's ideas about how to breathe are worth uh, looking into.
Absolutely.
Like I spent a whole day with Bobby Shue on the wedge breath and
Sure.
worked on it really hard for a while. And Bud Brisbois had some very specific exercises that he used. There's some exercises in the Jimmy Stamp book.
Right.
And Mike Vax has been putting stuff out online about
Mm-hmm.
his
Mm-hmm.
breathing techniques. I think anytime we do anything like that, you're getting a mind body connection going that's good. And I'm reminded of Tiger Woods when he was a kid liked to imitate all of his favorite golf swings. Like he could imitate Chichi Rodriguez, he could imitate Lee Trevino. I mean, really. And
Mm-hmm.
Roger Federer is that way playing tennis. He can imitate all of his opponents' swings
Hmm.
and mannerisms on the court, and he can imitate a lot of the women. It's hilarious to see, but the point of that is you gain insight, and probably the most profound thing I've ever told any student to do with their breathing is experiment.
Exactly.
Try some things because you've got to get out of your habits when they're not working. And as far as my dad, he had a vocalist's idea about breathing, and he wanted to take in as much air as possible and let the note just kind of float on top of the air that's in the body. You don't really blow when you're singing. It just sits there on top of the breath, which kind of expels itself. And so for his money for singing, he just thought the more air you can get in uh, as easily as possible, the better. And so he always talked about just making the diaphragm move down. It's just you got to move it down. You got to move it down. You got to move it down. And so that was his thing. And then he would actually take a tape measure to his belly button and see how far it would go out. Now, I discovered that my body doesn't work that way. I'm not going to expand down there uh, outwardly. But I finally got a hold of an Alexander Technique book that described what it was that he had taught me, which is you've got your diaphragm, which is your inhalation muscle, and it's dome shape, and then you've got all your guts and innards, and
Mm-hmm.
and then below that you've got your pelvic floor, which is a bowl shape, and it's the opposing muscle group to the diaphragm. So in order for the diaphragm to really move down, the pelvic floor needs to relax, okay, and have room to move down as well.
Right.
And so, like, there's an exercise in the stamp book where he has you put your knees together and lean all the way over your knees and try to
Yeah.
breathe. Well, the only thing you can use is your intercostal muscles around your ribs, and you can't get in much air.
Right.
You just can't. And then if you start coming up, you can get in more, but it isn't until you spread your legs apart, like you're in the
Mm-hmm.
restroom, that your diaphragm isn't pushing against so much stuff, where the pelvic floor can actually lower.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just to demonstrate this, now I'm sitting down, it's a little easier standing up, but it tells you an awful lot about how to sit properly. Um, but this is a 6 liter bag. Okay, and I'm 62. I'll be 63 in a couple of weeks. And I think at my age, I'm supposed to have 3 or 3.5 liters of capacity. Okay, and I've played a bit today. I went for a run today, so I'm hoping this will be easy for me, but you never know. We'll see. So you can see it's pretty full just on the first attempt. I've actually split the seams on a couple of these, and I quit
Nice.
buying them. And then that was about 10 years ago, and I thought, I wonder, I'm getting old. I better check
Well,
it. So I
well,
bought
I've
another one,
I've seen
and
that
so
that
it made me think it's more about technique than it is lung capacity.
Mhm. Well, it could be. I'm smaller. I mean, some people are just bigger and they have longer lungs or wider lungs or whatever, and they just have a bigger capacity. So I think that it's definitely a plus, but it's not an end all, if you're
Well, it's
playing
really I
efficiently.
don't think it really has anything to do with how much actual liters of air you get in. It's the elasticity of the tissue and the toning of the various muscle groups working together so that nothing has to work too hard, so you can
Well,
stay relaxed.
you just hit on something that I'm big into, and one of the posts that I put up had to do with routines, and I'm not talking playing routine. I'm just talking about staying in shape, healthy
Right.
routine, and I exercise almost every day of the week. I got a big stretching kind of yoga and calisthenic, tons of all kind of different sit-ups, and I run like you a little bit. I don't run like 10 miles or whatever, but maybe a couple of miles, sometimes just a mile or whatever. But I really do it to kind of get my cardio going, and also it really has made a big difference in my breathing, and I feel like
I
it
think
keeps my lungs elastic, as you're saying.
yeah, and it helps us just have enough energy to be productive all day.
Yeah,
You
I
know, if
agree.
I teach a lot of hours, and I try to play a lot of hours, and it's really easy to want to shut down at dinner time and just be done for the day.
Yeah.
And I that's not a musician's life. you know,
No.
no, we have to squeeze every day for all it's worth. You know,
Right. You
so
got to stay on it.
if you're out of shape, it's not going to happen. You're
No, but
just not
and
going to
it
feel
just
like it.
you just feel better. I mean, my father is at this point he's like 89 years old, I think, and he's in good shape. I mean, he's amazing, and I hope that I'm in the shape that he's in at that age, or maybe possibly better, but at least what he is. I mean, he gets around great. He's driving, he's walking, and doing all kind of things. And he tells me, he says, your body's like a car. He says the older it gets, the more maintenance it needs.
Yeah,
And I think he's right in that. So when we're young, I used to run and do all the things that like Claude Gordon used to talk about in high school. And I always felt like back then, it's like, this doesn't make any kind of difference whether I run or not. But I was, 15, 16, 17 years old, and I was in good shape. I didn't feel it like I do now. If I stop exercising for more than 2 or 3 days, I really feel it.
me too. Me too.
So, well, those are some good points there. Um, I was also thinking here. You're a Shilkey artist. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the gear you're playing on, just out of curiosity?
Well, let's see. I grew up like a lot of people. I was studying with orchestral trumpet players, and they pushed me towards Bach. I actually grew up on a constellation, but
I had one of those.
I still have it. It's around here somewhere. I love it. And but I got a Bach when I went to college and played Bach. Was a Bach artist, clinician for a long time, and then part of when I'm dealing with this book and trying to get more efficient and trying to figure out, wait a minute, there's only so many hours in the day. I need to figure out how to make the most of my time, and I realized that if I hadn't played my C trumpet for 3 days, then I had to spend a good amount of time just establishing my sound and getting reacquainted with the instrument, and the same with every other instrument,
Hmm.
you know. And so I thought there's got to be a better way. And I was good friends with John Faddis. I had hired him to do a jazz festival at one point, and he stayed in touch. And he, of course, is a shoki artist. And at the time, Pat Hunn was the plant manager who was in school with me at Michigan, a guitar student like myself, uh, and the head salesperson was also a guitar student. So we knew each other really well. And I would go to the conferences, the ITG conferences or Midwest conference, and I'd just hang out at the shoki booth because my buddies were there and play horns.
Hmm.
And so Pat wouldn't tell me what I was playing. He just kept throwing horns at me. He knew I had a piccolo, shoki piccolo. He knew I had the 4-valve E flat. He knew I had had an impulse buy of a C cornet. But what I didn't know is these were all 450 bore, the medium bore, or
Hmm.
even really necessarily what that meant. So he just kept handing me horns, and I kept playing them and found the ones I like. And then he handed me the Faddis model, which I assumed would be a good jazz trumpet and lead trumpet. And I, put my lead mouthpiece in there and go, yeah, this is nice. I like that. And he said, I forget what I was playing at the time, probably 1C. He goes, put that in there. So I did, and I started playing like low trumpet, low
Hmm.
excerpts like Tannhauser and Carmen and all that, the lowest stuff.
Hmm.
And it was the best low notes I've ever played in my life. And I'm just staring at it, and he's just laughing. Faddis is laughing, and I said, "Come on, put it to a test." And so I started playing the harder B flat trumpet things, like Halsey Stevens and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And it was not hard at all. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to rethink this. So just sitting there at the Shoki booth at one of these conferences, the wheels started turning, and Andrew Nauman, who had bought the company, came over and talked to me. He said, take your time with this, but we can probably work something out. And so I ended up buying a B flat, a C trumpet, and a cornet. And they gave me, like great prices, dealer
Hmm.
discount or whatever. And I've been a shoki artist ever since. And here's the advantage: is I can pick up my C cornet. It's 450 bore. I can pick up my E flat cornet. It's what's in arm's reach. It's 450 bore. I can pick up my 4-valve E flat, also 450 bore, um, as well as some horns I'd have to go grab. And so it's really simplified the acclimation process,
There's a
going from horn to
consistency there
horn.
when you're playing all of the same.
Well, it's two things. If I don't play a horn for a while, I don't worry about it. I can pick it up and play it. But the other thing is, if I'm like in recital mode or something that I need to be practicing these two or these three horns, it doesn't bother me to pick up on, something else,
Hmm.
because it's not going to throw me off. So I end up staying in shape on all the instruments very easily, and I don't end up having to play really simple stuff just to establish my sound on a C trumpet because I haven't played C trumpet seriously in 3 days or something.
Hmm.
So it saved me a lot of time. It's been super practical for me. The other thing
That's
is, in,
interesting. That's a point well taken on my side. I mean, I'm pretty much B flat all the way. I pretty much
right,
play B flat trumpet and flugelhorn. Once in a while, I'll pull out a piccolo, but it's been ages. And I used to play C and that in college, and for a little while after. But I went more of a commercial route. So for me, I'm pretty much on the B flat stuff. So,
well,
but
as a
that's
as a college trumpet teacher, I've always felt like I need to know about everything.
absolutely.
And I've always enjoyed it anyway. But
Hmm.
I'll play in a funk band if the opportunity comes up. I'll play in a New Orleans style brass band if the opportunity comes up. I'm in a salsa band. Play in orchestras, brass quintets, and recitals. Anything that I think my students might need to be trained for, I want to make sure I have some idea what it's
Yeah.
about.
Well, it
Uh,
keeps your life interesting too as a musician, playing in lots of different situations, some good, some not so good, but yeah, well, that's cool. That's some interesting thing. Well, we're almost out of time here, so I'm just gonna end by asking you a question since this site deals with those of us trumpeters that are 50 years and beyond, what, briefly here, what kind of, do you notice some differences in your playing or in your body at all at this age? And has that affected you positively or negatively? I know it's hard to
Well,
answer that in a quick.
I've been blessed with pretty good health. I had hernia operations when I was younger, mostly genetic, I think. But those were ended up not being a huge deal. I haven't had any major dental issues. Um, I know people have been through hell.
I know, absolutely. Well, that sounds like I'm kind of in the same category. I've been really lucky health wise. I've tried to take care of myself and moderate and exercise and do all those things. And those of us that are in that are luckier than others, but it does
Well,
take some work.
usually if I have a bad day on the trumpet, I know exactly why. It's because I just, you know, played lead on a big band thing the night before, and I just know that the next day is going to be a little slower going,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
something like that. I can explain it. Um,
Well, and every day's a new day when we pick up the instrument. The other day, Marc Cajon put up a post and he said, I'm a new student or a beginning student or something every day, and I thought that's, coming from an artist like him, that's something, but I thought about it and he's absolutely right. We start over each day. I think even Herbert Clark said that at one point. So, anyways, well, I just wanted to say thank you for spending time with us here, and I want to remind everybody that this book, I tend to invest a lot in my career, and I purchase a lot of books. I don't just talk about it; I actually do it. And this is a special book, and it's called Special Studies for Trumpet, and I highly recommend it. It's a really
it's
well thought out
it's
piece, and
completely self-published, so you have
yeah,
to kind of look for it. But if you just type in John Daniel Trumpet, if you don't get my website, you'll get a dealer who sells it,
yeah.
and that's
Well, I
fine.
would suggest they get it like I did, johndanieltrumpet.com. I think that's the best way. But, well, thank you so much for your insights and spending time with us today. I
It's a
really
pleasure,
appreciate
and
it.
thank you so much for starting this Facebook group because oh my God, the great players you have on there, and just the sense of camaraderie about sharing good ideas and respect for each other's successes and careers. And we all know what kind of sacrifice has
Absolutely.
gone into this and the level of passion that we all have in common for making music and playing. And I think there's just, we're not competing with each other because we've all played. It's all
Sure,
good.
absolutely. Amen. All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you online. Always welcome all your input on the threads, and I hope we get to personally cross paths sometime.
Likewise, Bobby.
It'd be really
Likewise.
good. Well, thanks
Likewise.
again. I appreciate it so much. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.